can't hold me back, you can't hold me down. Put me in the game, gotta get it right now. Whoa, on me, you know I'm the one and only. All them other ones is phony. Moving like a drum, I'm on beat. Whoa, yeah, you could put the pressure on me. I ain't never getting cold feet. Straight top where I'm gon' be. I got no time to debate. I put my reps in like every day. I keep it moving, I don't like the way. I just keep adding these wins to the play. I ain't worried about a setback. With a loss, I'ma get back. Going up on a jetpack. All the haters, you can sit back.
Welcome in to our last division of our 2023 team previews. I'm Mike LaPlant. With me here to help me to break down the Arizona Cardinals is Jordan Schultz. How's it going, man?
Doing pretty good. Excited to talk about this juggernaut of a fantasy team we got here.
The one that's tanking already for Caleb Williams. But before we jump into it, guys, if you like listening to us, you like watching us, click that subscribe button down below. Like the video. Go back all of our team previews. Like all those videos, guys. There's 28 other videos there. And then make sure you if you want to become an all access member at fantasy6pack.net, you can get a 15% discount by using F6P NFL. You get access to our award-winning rankings. We're talking top 5 in Fantasy Pro Rankings Challenge. We got our new NFL fantasy football draft cheat sheet that just came out. You can get all your custom league projections. That's really cool. Trust me, I use that for my leagues. And then I think the coolest part about the membership is you get, interpersonal connections with us. You get to talk directly with us in our Discord channel. All right, you can get custom questions answered. I mean, my motto is there's no dumb questions, only dumb answers. So if you get a dumb answer, you can blame us, which, I mean, let's be honest, you're not going to get dumb answers. But that pretty much wraps it up. Let's for that intro here. So let's jump into our Arizona Cardinals preview, and let's start off with this injury-riddled quarterback room. All right, we got Kyler Murray, Colt McCoy, and then they drafted Clayton Tune this year, which is a little appealing considering, like we said, Kyler Murray is injured. He is coming off that ACL tear, and from what I remember, I believe it was 2 ligament tear, so we're talking like probably won't even be playing most of this year, guys. With that being said, out of Colt McCoy and Clayton Tune here, Jordan, who's going to be the week 1 starter? Because Colt McCoy's dealing with some injuries too.
No questions, Clayton Tune. I mean, how many weeks ago was it when we were on a show and I said, like, hey, watch out for this guy. I think he's got a chance of starting this year. And then fast forward now, the news coming out of camp was like, oh, looks like this Tune guy might have a chance to be in the week 1 starter. He's the guy I want there. And I think that he could be like a little bit of a sneaky fantasy player, like the deeper super flex leagues. You go back and look at what he did in college, man. He put up like video game numbers. That last year there, Houston had over 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. He's the reason that Tank Dell got drafted as high as he did this year. They're going to be behind a lot, so they're going to be throwing a lot. So I think that there's a chance he could be like a sneaky fantasy play, especially because I don't think they're going to be winning a lot. So they're not going to be in any rush to rush Kyler back once he's back healthy. I don't know. I think Clayton Tune could have a very short window of fantasy relevance, but I think that he could be a little bit of a sneaky play this year.
Might have a short leash too, depending on how fast Colt McCoy can come back from that injury. But just real quick here before we move on to the running backs, I'm kind of curious what you think about Kyler Murray's fantasy outlook, just, beyond this year, because we kind of know he's most likely going to be sitting half the year, if not more. But, beyond this year, what do you see for Kyler Murray's future in your crystal ball?
Can you ask me once we know if they're picking first or not next year? Make it a lot easier there. If they're in a spot to draft Drake May or Caleb Williams next year, I think that you can pretty much count him. He's gone. Whether it's, obviously it'll be a trade somewhere else, but he's not going to play another game for them. I think you go get that quarterback and you kind of restart that clock, especially with like how many first-round picks and the future assets they acquired this last draft. They don't care about this year as much. They're going to be looking more long-term. But assuming that's not the case, usually the team that we think is the worst team in the league in the offseason ends up not being the worst team. Look at like Seattle last year. So realistically, he's still gonna be a starter somewhere. Like I don't think he's gonna be like one of these guys that gets Josh Rosen and then he never plays again or something like that. He'll be a starter somewhere, but I don't necessarily know that it's in Arizona, and I don't know that's a bad thing. It seems like there's been a little bit of like a rocky relationship there, just lots of different things. They had like the study clause, or basically said like you can't play video games while you're like doing your film study. Like it's just a lot of weird stuff there. So it could be one of those divorces that could be good for everybody. So I still like him long term, but I definitely am perked up a little bit and very intrigued. Like I think if it's something to where they have a chance at the top pick when you're about halfway through the season, it might not be a bad idea to maybe look to unload him, see what you can get before he's back on the field even.
Absolutely, kind of like what the Jaguars did with Calvin Ridley last year when he was on a suspension.
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah, you heard it here first. He's a future Tampa Bay Buccaneer because Baker Mayfield's not lasting. So we'll move on.
Yeah,
it would. I think it would with oh man, now I'm blanking. Todd. I can't remember his last name.
Bowles, yeah.
Thank you, Todd Bowles. But we'll move on to our running backs here. And James Conner was quietly solid again last year. I mean, with like we said, the QB injuries, you might have a rookie QB starting off the year. I mean, do we got a positive outlook for James Conner going into this year, just like we, did last year, or is it going to be a regression maybe?
No, I think that what he did last year is right in line with what you can expect this year. I mean, he wasn't outstanding by any means. I only had I think a little over 4 yards per carry, I think 4.2 or 4.3. Where he really made up for that though was in the receiving game. Last year he let me pull this up here real quick. Added 46 catches for 300 yards and another touchdown. Where I mentioned before, they're going to be playing from behind a lot. I think that could benefit him there. I actually liked him. I thought he looked really good as a pass catcher last year. So I hope that's something they do a little bit more this year under a new quarterback. Well, whether it's Clayton Tune or Colt McCoy to start the year. So yeah, I do. I think that there's a chance that he'll be solid again this year. He doesn't have a lot of people behind him that really worry me too much. Like Keontae Ingram's okay, Corey Clement, Tyson Williams. He kind of liked him a little bit coming out of college, but I mean, he went undrafted and has been just bouncing around enough now that I don't really worry about him. So I just think as long as he doesn't get hurt, I don't see any reason why he doesn't pretty easily finish as an RB2 this year.
Now, with that being said, if he does get hurt, I mean, running backs don't play full seasons anymore.
Sure.
It just doesn't happen. Who's your preferred handcuff behind him?
Oh man, this is just straight up guess. I don't have any great numbers to back this up, but Keontae Ingram, the little bit of tape I've watched on him, I like more than I liked of Tyson Williams or Corey Clement. So I'll go that way, but if Connor goes down, I don't know that there's anybody you're going to want to start. This
might just be a running back committee, honestly.
And yeah, exactly. Even if somebody comes in here and gets 10, 15 touches, it doesn't mean they'll be productive with it,
Absolutely. So let's go to, even less productive group, the wide receivers here. And they just cut DeAndre Hopkins. So, I mean, we got Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore, Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson, who they drafted this year, Zach Pascal, who they picked up in free agency, and then Andre Basellia, if I said that correctly. Marquise Brown had pretty much a career season last year, and now he finds himself as the clear number one with Hopkins gone. I mean, do you think he can exceed last year's breakout, post-hype breakout with a rookie quarterback, or is it, going to be just kind of a volume-based year for Marquise Brown?
I think that you're hoping for volume. So like last year, he only played, I believe, 12 games before he got hurt, but had 107 targets. So, I mean, he was on pace to have a really high year, and that was with DeAndre Hopkins playing, I think, after 6 games last year, if I remember correctly, 4 or 6 games. So a decent amount of that was playing with Hopkins as well, too. But that being said, you do have a rookie quarterback for Colt McCoy, which I feel like in terms of fantasy production will probably be pretty even. I don't think there's a big advantage either way there. So I think that last year, the pace that he was on, I don't know if you can expect that this year. He's a good sell high at this point, I think. I know a lot of people are kind of going the opposite way on him, but I'm going the other way. I think I'd rather try to move off of here. I really like Michael Wilson. I know we'll talk about him a little bit more later. He's a guy that I think even if redraft leagues going to have a little bit of relevance this year.
Nonsense. Let's talk about him now. And Rondale Moore.
Yeah.
Rondale Moore, he's had his flashes. I mean, but as well as I do, there's just no consistency there. So I'm kind of curious, let's kind of lump them together here because Michael Wilson being the rookie, being the surprise pick for a lot of people this year for the Cardinals, getting him in the 3rd round. I mean, can either one of those two make a consistent impact in your fantasy roster this year?
I wouldn't count on it in the first half of the season, but I think in the second half of the season, I think Michael Wilson could come on pretty strong. They invested a 3rd round pick in him, which surprised me a little bit. Like there was a lot of good receivers in this class, and so I was surprised that they went with him with some of the other guys that were still on the board at the time. But that being said, like the biggest knock on him has been injury. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. Every time he's been on the field in college, like he looks dominant out there. So if he's a guy that I think could be a little bit of a sneaky play this year, had he played a full healthy year his last year, I think he maybe would have been more of a solidified 3rd round pick where it wasn't as much of a surprise. They need somebody big bodied on the outside. That's not Marquise Brown. That's not Rondale Moore. So he can kind of play the role that nobody else can. So I'll go with Michael Wilson here. I think that second half of the season, I think he can come on a little bit. Don't want to count on either of those two in like the first 5 to 6 weeks of the year though.
Agreed. It's a little spicy, but I agree with you there. I mean, they're trying to rebuild here.
For the spicy. Let's go.
It's a rebuild here, and let's move on to then the tight ends. And I mean, we got Zach Ertz before getting injured. He was pretty solid, but that was with Kyler Murray. We are going to get a different, quarterback here. Do you think he has anything left in the tank? Or do you think it's going to be Trey McBride taking over that full tight end position, and becoming the fantasy starter this year because of it being a rebuild?
So my gut says Trey McBride, but I have to put a caveat on there that I've kind of been fading Zach Ertz the last few years, and it's not worked out for me. The only time it worked out was when he got hurt last year. Basically, last year was on pace for over 700 yards and I think 7 touchdowns before he got hurt. So I mean, even at that age, on a team that wasn't that great, he was still putting up numbers. That being said, how many 32, 33, 34-year-olds are able to tear their ACL and come back and be fantasy productive after that? I don't think the list is that high, especially of guys that aren't superstar elite talents. Zach Ertz solid, but he's not, like Jimmy Graham or anything like that in his prime. So I'm going with Trey McBride here. Tight ends do take a little bit to develop, so I think a lot of people have kind of written him off a little bit after he didn't break out as a rookie, which should be expected. And he was a first round pick last year. I think he'd be the second tight end drafted in this year's draft if they were in the same class. So I'm going to go Trey McBride here, but with the caveat that if Zach Ertz is healthy, there's a chance that he could eat into this role enough to where it's annoying to try and start either of them.
True that. And then you got the third stringer, Noah Togaya. Yeah, I probably butchered that one, but I can't see any relevance of him this year. It's going to be between McBride and Zach Ertz, and it all depends on the health, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
But that pretty much wraps it up here, guys, for this Arizona Cardinals team preview. Hopefully you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed talking about it. Hint, I mean, we enjoyed talking about it, but not about the Cardinals. But make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe if you want to get in on all the other team previews. And then, if you want to become that all access member, you want to get 15% off. It's a great deal. Use F6P NFL and you get all access to us. But other than that, for Jordan, I'm Mike. Peace out, guys.
See you.